of the big growths we're going to see in technology in the next years is what we call edge computing. And this is essentially bringing smaller data centers to things like mobile phone masts, where the latency, the connection time between your mobile phone and a mini data center is actually reduced.
There's a huge power demand for the data center. We can provide natural gas, which allows them to run their own generators and provide only some of their requirements for the power.
If this is an expanding part of our energy use sector, and if we are aiming to decarbonize our energy system, I see a lot of synergies between the kind of demands that data centers have and the kind of energy that renewables plus hydrogen can supply.
EirGrid, the grid developers' budget for upgrades in the next few years is 2 billion. And half of that is for the interconnector to France. So they're spending 1 billion, but the data industry are spending 500 million. So one industry spending almost as much, or almost half as much as the grid operator in terms of the whole country. So I kind of look at it as the data industry are helping us build a new grid.
We have potential around the northwest coast, the Midlands, the southeast coast for wind, but our data centers aren't there. So I think you could have a win-win in terms of co-locating data centers closer to the sites where this renewable green energy is produced.
We're also looking at how we can move outside of the constrained Dublin area, outside of those real hotspots, out closer to the source of renewable power, where you can lessen the transmission burdens. That's another thing that I think is vital that data centers have to do.
You need an electricity grid that can take the large volumes of renewables that will be coming forward in both onshore and offshore in the next couple of years. Right now, the electricity grid in Ireland is simply not strong enough, to be very blunt about it, to take the volume of electricity that we're producing. And in order to strengthen the grid, we will need grid infrastructure. So we will need new substations, improved substations, new underground cables.
Fiber can transfer more data at a higher throughput over longer distances than copper is capable of doing. If we would be transmitting 1,000 megabits per second, copper will support this transmission to a maximum distance of 100 meters. While with single mode fiber, you could reach 40 kilometers.
Sometimes people would say to me, well, can we have one without the other? Well, you can have a car without a battery, but you're not going to go very far. So you can have technology, but if you don't have data centers, they're the batteries. They're where the power comes from. And if you don't have a place to store your data and to manage your data, well, then you don't have a technology industry. I've never met a data center company in Ireland who hasn't said very clearly to me, we want to use green energy, we will help support the development of that green energy, and we'll even pay a premium to buy that green energy.
In order for technology to be able to have a material impact on climate change and issues that are going on from a sustainability perspective, it can't contribute to the problem.
Is that we'll have a direct renewable energy connection to our campus, which will primarily power the data center. That will be coupled with a longer duration battery, which will account for some of the periods where the wind doesn't blow. But we will also have our thermal generation plants. They'll still have a purpose, not just for ourselves, but for the grid as a whole.
At the moment, cooling in data centers is liquid cooling, which is quite advanced, or it's blowing cold air over server racks. So what we're talking here is something that is actually inbuilt into the rack itself.
What the direct line would involve is essentially you're removing the kind of connection to the public network for the renewable generator, and it's going straight into the large energy user in effect. For the data center, you're actually getting true additionality in terms of the power. Because when someone says, where's your power coming from? You literally point at the cable and that's linking you up to the solar farm.
In the context of renewables for 2030, we've got the offshore, but we've also got plans to connect 8 gigawatts of solar and 5 gigawatts of onshore wind. So if you add those all into a system with a peak capacity of about 5.5, 6 gigs, it's fairly easy to say, well, what are we going to do with all this power?
We've got a lot of work to do in Ireland to reinforce the grid. And we don't differ from some other countries and regions in Europe as well. But there is really an urgency now to increase capacity and bolster the grid.